Hi, everybody. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. This is our 6th round of Smart Growth Grants and our inaugural webinar. So, hope that it's helpful. That for a lot of people, sometimes hearing and seeing things on screen is a little easier than slogging through the request for applications document. So I hope this is helpful, and if you have any feedback, please feel free to email me. My contact info is going to be in here, and it's on the website as well. So the application deadlines to keep in mind, the actual absolute last moment that you don't want to you want to avoid this deadline is Friday, June 7th at 3 p.m. You want to really submit your application well before that, at least a couple days before, so that if there's anything that, like, say, uploads that you didn't realize you hadn't uploaded or anything like that, that you've already tried to submit and taken care of any issues that come up. Then questions, the Q&A period will be closing on Friday, May 24th at close of business. If I come in on Monday and I've got an inbox full of emails, I'm going to assume that business extended pretty late on Friday, so there's no exact time stamp on that, but definitely need to be in on the 24th. And then eventually, when we get to the point of announcing awards, we anticipate that to be in early September, and we have to allow approximately 60 days to get under contract, so our estimated contract start dates are going to be November 1st of 2019 this year. So got a nice quote from Commissioner Sagos that talks about what the Smart Growth Program in the Adirondack and Catskill Parks is all about. It's bigger than just. Do we have the notes on there or no? Oh, it's not about just the communities. It's not just about the state lands. It's about making the connection. We've been doing this for, like I said, 6 rounds since 2007, 2008. We've been spending, we spent a total of $5 million, $1.5 million in the Catskill Park and $3.5 million in the larger Adirondack Park. I just wanted to say, if anyone can identify that picture in the background, the peak from which that photo was taken, then you automatically win your grant award. No, I'm just kidding, but I'd be interested to know, and we'll revisit that later in the webinar. So, looking at the overall program goals, we're looking to support main streets in the villages, hamlets, and town centers. We're looking at transportation options, mixed use and adaptive reuse of underutilized buildings and sites. That could mean an industrial site or an area zoned industrial, or it could mean just a moderately sized building in your hamlet that's not really living up to its potential, that could be used for a public benefit of some sort. That can include historic buildings. If you're going to do work on a building that's listed on the national or state registers, that may involve a little bit more work, but in the end, you come up with a really cool project that has enhances and maintains a really special sense of place in your community. We're looking at community housing as an overarching goal, waterfront access and facilities, environmental resources, anything that can enhance the community while also helping protect the environment is right up our alley. Recreational access, various different types of recreation, greenways and blueways, as well as more just parks or pocket parks, protecting and improving scenic resources, open space, farmland, and working forest. We can get at that in sort of creative partnership type projects. And of course, tourism is a big driver for the economies in the parks. And anything we can do that incorporates historic cultural resources, education, festivals, those all also produce what you could call the park effect, that really makes the Adirondacks and Catskills special places. And anything that builds local capacity to do all of the above, we can support. So I just wanted to also mention that, you know, a lot of this, you can look at it from the perspective of New York State or statewide, what makes the parks really special, and why are we spending this money? From the top-down approach, you might say, well, or people ask me for that sort of perspective, and I say, well, compare it to a national park, right? Like you plan a trip to a national park, there's a, you know, there's vendors there, there's hotels, motels, all that is sort of procured and provided by the National Park Service. Well, the Adirondack Park and the Catskill Park are a mosaic of private and public land. The hamlets, the communities really are providing those kind of assets that, you know, there is no park service for. So from that perspective, that's a good reason for us to do this, but that's not really what this is all about. What it's really about is the priorities of the communities and us supporting those priorities. So that's, you know, maybe not the biggest focus in some of the outreach, like the social media and the press releases that have gone out, but I just want to reiterate that that's our main priority, is to look to the communities for what's important to them. So there's a very broad program. There's a lot that we can do. Capital improvements, even if it's just organizational development and capacity building. And as we talked about, anything that looks at cultural, environmental, and natural resources. We can fund the actual implementation of these sorts of projects, or we can look at project advancement. So, you know, let's fund a phase of a larger project. Let's help something move forward for your community. And comprehensive plans, we recognize, are sometimes critical to set the framework within which growth can occur, to help attract funding and to make sure that projects that do move forward are part of you know, a good environmental and well thought out framework. So we've got some nice actual photos of completed projects and examples of eligible projects. So I talked about sort of the overarching goals and also the general types of work. These are like actual physically or, you know, programmatically what has been done under this program that has made a difference or a change in your community. So bike-friendly routes and amenities, improving or promoting museums and theaters, improving Main Street facades, refurbishing historic properties, enhancing community-based tourism programs and activities. So it could be the actual programs and activities, creating new recreational opportunities or multi-use trails, and informational signage and kiosks. Sometimes creating a place for people to stop and orient themselves and understand what's around them can be critical in the parks. Enhancing parks and public spaces. You know, we could do everything from just picnic tables to pavilions, to just whatever is important to the community to make their public spaces nicer. Updating land use laws. So that's an actual sort of implementation of a comprehensive plan when you need to get into the actual zoning that will make a big difference for your community in the future. Improving visitor centers, tourism sites, beautifying tourism sites, sidewalks and streetscapes. There's a nice picture of an example of a sidewalk that we funded in Arkville in the Catskills. And we can do feasibility, design, or market planning, or marketing for your local sites that need that attention. Anything we can do that you know, also works toward energy efficiency, that's a major goal of the program. One of the things that we could do is provide shuttle service. That's another example of a transportation alternative that can solve multiple problems, whether it's crowding or lack of access. And finally, of course, municipal comprehensive plans are an eligible project as well. So it's a picture I just wanted to make sure I included because it's not necessarily the most beautiful, result, but it's a bit nicer than what was there. This was the former J&L site in Star Lake. We were a small piece of a larger project to remediate that site, and which is still underway. But this is a cleared, improved, ready for use building site that was formerly a derelict former industrial building. So here's the contact information for questions and answers. This is also on the website. We will make sure to post any questions and answers. Anything that you ask me that's already covered in the RFA, I'm just going to give the answers. It's no problem. If there's anything that we talk about that comes up, outside of this setting that is not already in the RFA, then that would go into the Q&A document so that the guidance is available for all potential applicants. So I just wanted to cover a few frequently asked questions just to get them out of the way before we get into the rest of the presentation. So sometimes we get the question of can I undertake a project on state land? Smart growth funding really is directed towards the local priorities, your projects that are on municipal land, not-for-profit owned land, or other private land where there's going to be a public benefit. But it is possible that something that's a priority for the local community is just something that maybe the department on state land or easement land hasn't been able to undertake, and they would support it. And then in that case, you could put in for a smart growth grant if you have a letter of support from a regional DEC land manager and stating that it's really unlikely to occur unless the community gets a smart growth grant for that. Land acquisition is an eligible expense, but we need to see that it's going to provide a public benefit. It has to be related to the project that you're applying for, directly related, so that like the purpose for the acquisition is one of the grant deliverables within the 3-year contract term. So that means basically I'm going to purchase this land in order to, or purchase a building, say, in order to turn it into an annex to our program center, or I'm going to turn it into a visitor center. Well, we want to see that you've completed all of that within the 3-year term, so that the land acquisition is just part of a bigger project. If there is land acquisition expenses, we'll make sure that the department adheres to the standards that OPRHP currently uses in their parks grants. In case you're familiar with those, you'll know what to expect, or you can look them up, including that there's qualified appraisals before that will move forward. So not-for-profit applicants sometimes ask, well, so the RFA says that we need the support of the local municipality. What does the support really mean? All the bottom line, all that's really required is a letter of support from the town. There can be obviously way more interaction and layers of support that go back and forth between the town and the not-for-profit, but the basic requirement is a letter to show that the not-for-profit proposal is consistent with the local plans and supported by the local government. An applicant can apply for a project that's already in progress, but you need to be sure to draw a dividing line there, a discrete set of deliverables and a scope of work not delivered to date. Like I was saying earlier, the contract start date will probably be around November 1st. Any expenses before then would be ineligible for reimbursement, so you have to be prepared to wait until then to start your grant. Another common question, the RFA states that planning activities need to be project specific, unless it's a municipal comprehensive plan and land use plan. So what do we mean by that? We don't want to see general strategic planning and organizational planning. Project specific means it's a feasibility study for a project, a conceptual design, a construction design, something that's going to help a project move forward, site plans and permitting, or it could be a larger scale project. Maybe it's a landscape scale program, such as the signage that went up through the Catskill Park, or long distance trails that go through various different areas, or larger outreach programs like Adirondack Harvest. So those are some examples of things that we have funded that sort of incorporate planning as part of implementation of a project. Finally, another frequently asked question is for-profit involvement. So, the Smart Growth Program talks a lot about how we want to help move toward economic development. And does that mean that we're looking to help local businesses? Well, it's not the main focus of the program. For-profit businesses are not eligible applicants, but there are, in addition to the secondary effects that community development sort of helps to improve the business environment, there are some projects that a municipality could undertake that would also directly benefit businesses potentially in the future or as part of the program. For example, a microenterprise program to support small businesses throughout the community, a Main Street program to fund facade or structural improvements, or directly promoting a strategically important local development site to connect that site with future private investment that inevitably will eventually involve a private for-profit business. So that kind of takes care of those questions, which brings us to the request for applications. It's available in the Grants Gateway. It's also on the DEC website. We're going to show you where to find it if you get lost. The key sections to focus on, I would say, are the scoring criteria and then the grant application components and guidance. When you are applying for the grant, you can follow through the grant application components and guidance section, and it will tell you pretty much everything you need to know as you're going through that. This is our front page for the RFA, what it looks like. We have $1,050,000 available for the Adirondack Park, $400,000 available for the Catskill Park. The grant amounts can range from $11,000 to $100,000. One application per project, and a single applicant can submit up to 3 applications. We recognize that some of the planning departments and county entities sometimes submit for lots of different local projects, so we want to allow up to 3 applications. There is a chance that new funding may be appropriated, and if the scores are high enough on the list, we could reach further down the list of applications to make additional awards. So this is important that I wanted to point out. Sometimes there's some confusion regarding the clause in the RFA where we talk about a cap on the total funding that can be awarded directly to not-for-profit corporations. So this is not related to any sort of cap per grant or per application. It's across the board. We're limited by the appropriation to only award 25% of available funding to not-for-profit corporations. So in the Adirondacks, that means $262,500 is our limit, with our sort of cap within the cap for not-for-profits, and the Catskills it's $100,000. So in order to deal with this, I really recommend that not-for-profits reach out to their local municipality and see if the municipality can be the lead applicant, because that shows that the municipality is really on board, and it also eliminates the limitation that's in place. So when planning your project, know that all projects must be completed and invoiced within a 3-year contract term. There can be up to 2 one-year extensions for extenuating circumstances. So I had kind of pointed out the scoring criteria section of the RFA. This is on page 9. And this is something that you really want to focus on. It gives you an opportunity to design your project and tailor it to the actual criteria that the reviewers will be assigning points based on. And this breakdown, beginning on page 9, of the scoring criteria includes, the exact point allocations and how they'll be assigned. So what I would do is read this once before writing your application, and then read it again before you submit it. If you read it before you write your application, you'll get an understanding of what we're looking for. And I think the second time around, you'll be able to really fine-tune and say, am I going to get 3 points here? Am I going to get 5? Can I maybe get 6? And those are the, you'll be able to really kind of judge that for yourself before you click submit. Part B of this section is the detail regarding the special conditions of the parks. This is Part B only pertains to the first question in Part A. Part B is sort of the background and the description that you need to understand how that 18-point question is going to be scored. That question really gets at, whether the project is contributing to and a really a good fit within the park. We're talking about, in that question, bolstering or capitalizing on the existing strengths of the parks, addressing challenges in current conditions, or targeting improvements for the parks, allowing the community or organization to take advantage of opportunities in the parks, and buffering the parks from environmental or economic threats. If you realize that kind of goes in line with a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, SWOT analysis, and that's sort of what our special conditions of the parks is. It talks about what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and how can the community put forward a project that addresses as many of those points as possible. So Part C, what is smart growth? This gets into the smart growth, not criteria, but principles. And these are the sort of overarching overall lens, the principles through which the reviewers are looking when they're assigning points. So the eligible project section of the RFA, that's the next section, starts on page 18. That is basically what we talked about at the beginning of the presentation. I wanted to get right into it to give you an idea of the type of work that we do or that you can do. But if you're looking for more detail or just to revisit that, you can check out that section of the RFA. So that brings us to page 21, the grant application components and requirements. New this year, you actually have some call-out boxes there that help you step by step on where to get help with it from the grants management website, steps to walk you through the application. So we have this webinar in addition to the what's in the RFA to help out. So there are some preliminary steps, but we'll cover those later when Jeff takes us through an actual application. I'm going to get right into the eligibility, which is covered under Program Specific Questions. That's one of the forms in the forms menu when you're filling out your application. Questions 2 through 7 are eligibility questions. These are pass, fail, or NA, not applicable. Be very careful if you're deciding that a question is not applicable. There's sort of limited circumstances. So for example, question number 5 is not applicable if the project is across a broad landscape and not site specific. Question number 5 is for a project area. Under question number 4, we talk about project location. We want to see a location map, just a general overview of where in the park or in the town, the eligible town this project is. And then if your project involves an actual site, we want to see an area map. So that makes that applicable. So in most cases, we're going to be looking for a response to question number 5 that includes an upload. But technically, the upload there is not applicable because you might be across a broad landscape. Questions number 6 and 7, they are relating to site plans, photos, and permits, as well as seeker. Those are only going to be applicable if you're doing construction and development. But the definition of construction is rather broad. It actually incorporates construction of a kiosk or signage, mostly because a lot of times you still need permits for those. So that just apply a broad definition of a construction. Make sure to double check your work before moving forward, and I think we'll go through each of the eligibility questions one at a time. First eligibility question is regarding the applicant eligibility. There is an upload required only for not-for-profits. This is where the not-for-profits will upload the letter of support from one eligible municipality. The eligible applicants are municipalities defined as counties, towns, and villages located wholly or partially within the park. This is for either park, Adirondacks or Catskills. Those are your eligible applicants. So the county, if it's partially within the park, can apply. Same with towns or villages. 501c3 not-for-profit corporations, as long as they have a support letter, they can be located anywhere. They could be from Maine, and be interested in the rural economy of the northeastern United States, and if they have a project in the Adirondacks or Catskills with a local partner, then they're in. Site accessibility. This is looking at the actual project site. I'm going to get into a lot of detail on this one because it's an upload required no matter what. We've changed this a little bit. In the past, we used to always require the deed, a copy of the current deed. That's a little bit over the top. So we will accept a printout or a screenshot of the parcel in the county tax map. Most of the times you can go to the county tax mapping online utility, software, and actually just go right in, find the parcel, and take a screenshot or print that out. So we can see, we just want to see where it is, what's the extent of the parcel, and who owns it. If the project doesn't involve a particular project site, then the upload is still required just because we wanted the upload to be required. So please just upload a brief description in a PDF describing how the requirements are not applicable to the project. So here's another sort of scenario. The property is not owned by the applicant. We want to see, again, the screenshot printout of the parcel in the county tax map. We also need to see a letter of support from the actual landowner. So obviously, the applicant is applying for a grant, but they don't own the land. We need to see that letter of support. All we need to see at the time of application is a letter and an understanding that there will be the need for a formal legally binding access agreement before the grant award goes to contract or as part of the contracting process. That's if the project involves construction, alteration of the site, or public access. But at the time of application, all we need is the letter. If the applicant is a not-for-profit proposing a project on municipal property, that's basically the same, except that instead of a letter, we want to see a municipal endorsement from the town or village or county that owns that land. And there is a sample municipal endorsement in the pre-submission upload section of the forms menu. So we talked about applicant eligibility, what makes an applicant eligible. The project eligibility is a little bit different. So in the Adirondack Park, the projects have to be within the blue line. They have to be within the park. And it's different for the Catskill Park. Projects must be located wholly within the boundaries of an eligible Catskill Park town or village. There's the list of the eligible Catskill Park towns and villages is on the last page of the RFA. So what that means is, let's say, you know, like even the county could apply for a project if it's located outside the Catskill Blue Line, but within one of those towns that is eligible because they're part of the park, or at least partially in the park. We wanted to look a little bit bigger in the Catskill Park because we realized that the region is a little bit larger than the park itself. There are some instances in which, you know, we have gotten applications for and funded some projects where the project was bigger than the park. In that case, they had to make a case for why, you know, they cut down the portion of the grant. So the grant only funded the portion of the project that was within the eligible boundary, and the part that was outside was not funded by the grant. So if this is project area, or eligibility question number 5 now. All projects that involve a project location or area must provide an area map that shows the project in relation to neighboring parcels, municipal boundaries, hamlet and community centers, natural resource assets, and recreational lands. So this is intended to show the layout of the project within the surrounding landscape, not necessarily the site itself, but the landscape. So what's the relationship here between this project and what's going on around us? And that, you know, if the project is part of an ongoing planning process, usually those things have already been thought about, and it's easy to show that in a map. Site plans, photos, and permits. All construction or development applications, actually, we want to see clear drawings, maps, photos, or plans of the existing and proposed construction on the site and areas immediately adjacent to the site. There are some exceptions that we would cover in the Q&A document. The only one that I know of right now is for trail development, where, you know, we don't need to see the complete engineer's schematic of the hiking trail, you know, but it would still be considered a construction project. Seeker, this is the final question number 7 for eligibility. There's a lot of detail in the RFA over how to handle seeker. I don't know, and it's basically, you know, you have to really understand if you're doing a construction or development project, look into whether it's a type 2 action, a type 1, or if it's unlisted. And there's a link in the RFA to the DEC website that gives you the guidance that you need to go through that assessment. And then once you kind of understand that, the requirements that are in the RFA will make a lot more sense. So we have made it through the eligibility criteria. We can take a deep breath and enjoy the view. This is, I had it in the notes, but I can't remember what mountain it is. It's in the Chain Lakes. That's looking out at the Chain Lakes. So let's get into the scoring questions. How are we doing on time?
2:44. Yeah, I mean, if we can get to 3, that'll be good. And then
okay.
Mine will be 45 minutes or so.
Okay. All right. So reviewers are going to look at the whole application when they're scoring, not just the questions to these program-specific questions, number 8 through 22, but when you're filling out your application, you're going to have these questions that you can provide direct responses to the scoring criteria. This allows you to make your case as to the value of your application up against, each one of these scoring criteria. So I'm just going to go through each of the scoring criteria and briefly note why they're important. We already talked about number 8, the alignment with the special conditions of the Adirondack or Catskill Park. And again, the details for that is in Part B of the Article 5 scoring criteria. Number 9 goes to environmental quality.
Should I be in a different slide? Or?
No, that's okay. What we're looking at is basically, is the project consistent with environmental quality? Does it improve it? Does it, is it compatible with it, or is it not? And that's really what we're looking at there. Community-centered growth is number 10, and quality of life and social impact is number 11. Those questions really go hand in hand with the guidance from Smart Growth Principles, which is Part C in Article 5. So if you're trying to really understand what we're talking about when we talk about community-centered growth or quality of life and social impact, then I would just kind of go back to those Smart Growth Principles. Number 12, secondary and add-on effects. What we're looking at there is, will the project leverage other positive improvements? So, what you want to have a project that sort of creates synergy, I guess is the word that a lot of people use, that we can see that this project is really going to help with future improvements. And then the next scoring question is tourism enhancement. That's one of the goals of the program. Sustainable economic impact. We want to see a response to that talks about whether, what is the economic impact and is it sustainable? And then, so those are all impacts. We're looking at what are the impacts and outcomes of the project. As we get into number 15, we're starting to get into what we consider to be success factors. So planning support is a success factor. These are all based on, we did a review of our first few rounds of Smart Growth grants and tried to determine what it was that made certain projects successful and other ones not as successful, and we came up with the success factors. Planning support, professional experience, do the staff and their volunteers have qualification, skills, experience, and capabilities. Partnership, involvement, and public support. So this is a broad question that looks at how many people are involved, how involved are they, is there public support for the project, are there multiple organizations involved? Those types of things help create successful projects. Project readiness, is the project ready? Is it going to happen within 3 years, realistically? So I just, even though I don't have slides specifically for those, I wanted to at least highlight why we think that those are important. The next part of the scoring is for cost effectiveness. This is 20% of the application score. You want to double check that, looking at page 36 of the RFA, there's a list of eligible and non-eligible costs. We'll go over that later in a few slides, but it's also in the RFA. The budget needs to be cost effectiveness, reasonable, and eligible if it's going to gain the top points. So one of the criteria for cost effectiveness is local contribution. You can get up to 5 points. Match is not required. You could have a 0 match, but you can gain these points for local contribution by committing match. And you can put in a description here in this program question talking about the local contribution, but you still need to make sure that's actually entered in the budget under match. So budget detail and reasonableness of expenses is up to 7 points, and here we are requiring an upload for all applicants. We want to see where the numbers came from, so even if you just grabbed quotes off the internet and printed them, or printed a PDF or screenshot or whatever, you know, that shows us that your numbers are grounded and well informed. Or maybe you got some informal quotes from potential contractors. That really helps us avoid awarding the wrong amount of money. You know, like maybe you get in over your head because it actually costs a lot more than you thought, or we've got money just kind of sitting out there under contract for things that are going to end up costing less. So either way, it's a bit of effort at the application phase, but it saves us a lot in terms of program efficiency. Oh, and one thing I wanted to note for sure is that if there are contractual services or equipment valued at $2,500 or more per item, the 2 informal quotes are required to be uploaded. So now we're on to the budget forms, which Jeff will go over how to actually fill that out. You'll see it on the screen. But I just want to point out, again, there's no local match, but this is where you can enter local contribution in the match categories of the budget property screen. And that should only be entered if the local contribution is directly associated with and a part of delivering the actual work plan. So you may not be aware the Grants Gateway calculates match as a percentage of the requested grant amount. So when it asks for match percent, does it ask for a percent or does it ask for a dollar value?
It requires a percent, but you probably don't have the requirement.
Okay, yep. Okay. So when you're trying to reach these targets in order to gain points, then the 40% is where you gain the max points. That's 40% of the grant amount, which calculates out as 28.571% of total project. So, you know, if these numbers are actually in the RFA, and if you are ever doubting, you know, where you're at, just go back to those numbers and plug them in, and that should help. So there's also the opportunity, and we encourage you to enter any other state or federal contributions towards the total project. These should be entered in the other category, so it's not match because state and federal funding is not an eligible match, but we want to see it there, so we would look for it in the other category. It should only be entered if the other funding is part of and needed to fully deliver the work plan, including performance measures. So don't over-report like future phases or past phases. It has to be part of what we're actually doing within this 3-year contract term. But if there is some other funding there, we want to see it. All expenses in the budget should be associated with the actual grant contract term. So then the next section that you'll be filling in is the work plan. It's sort of like the canvas for the project. It tells us the story. Sometimes we actually recommend that it's one of the first things you fill out before you start responding to program-specific questions. Actually develop the work plan, because this is really like the essence of what you're actually going to be doing with this, with the funding. It talks about timeframes, project objectives, tasks, and deliverables. So with performance measures that are in that work plan, they become the basis for the contract reporting and project reimbursement. So if you basically, by applying for this work plan and putting performance measures in, that's what we're going to be looking at when we're executing and administering the contract. There is a sample, sort of a blank worksheet in the pre-submission uploads. This is what it looks like. So you can download that and use it as a template. You can see there's the objective, tasks associated with that objective, and then performance measures associated with the task. It's limited to 3 per item on here, but you can obviously, when you're sketching it out, you can organize that however you want. There's another page in case you had 2 objectives, then you've got another, you can just kind of multiply the number of pages that you need to fully flesh out your project. So the next section in the RFA is the actual application evaluation and selection. Page 33, we talk about how the projects will be evaluated. They're based on the criteria that are listed on page 34 and detailed in Article 5. We already talked about what are the scoring criteria, what are the eligibility criteria. Basically, this section of the RFA just lists it all out so that you can see it all in one place, what the process is that we step through. The process is that the applications are individually evaluated by several reviewers, and then the scores are averaged. So when you are responding to each of the program questions, the character count, the limit of number of characters you can enter, may give you, some understanding of the level of detail that we're looking for. This is kind of like a tip. Make sure to write more rather than less, get all the details, and think your project through when devising the work plan. So the points in the scoring criteria add up to 100. The department does reserve the right to decline funding if projects don't receive a minimum of 75. And it's possible unawarded funds allocated to one program, say the Adirondack Park program, could be transferred to deserving projects under the concurrent Catskill Park opportunity, and vice versa. So what does deserving mean? It means that, let's say the other park has a bunch of unfunded projects that got over a 75, and we've already funded all the projects over a 75 in the other opportunity. Maybe we'll transfer the funding over. So it just gives a little bit of an opportunity for one park to kind of outdo themselves, but we've never actually used this. It's just there, to give sort of like a fail-safe to make sure that the funding is used in the most efficient and wise sort of manner as possible. Eligible grant reimbursement costs. So these are the eligible costs that we talked about that are listed on page 36. Personal services, staff salaries. If you're including volunteer hours as match, they would go in that category under as match, not as grant, but they're still in that category of the budget, or entered on that form, I should say. Contractual, those are costs that related to contractual services. to implement your project. Travel is eligible if directly required for the project. And equipment, just know that if we fund the purchase of equipment, it's actually owned by the state under a grant. So we really recommend rental unless there's a great cost effectiveness argument to be made for buying and owning. The other category that is most commonly used for supplies and materials, sometimes people want to put supplies and materials under equipment or vice versa, but yeah, that's what the other category is for. So not eligible includes any costs outside Okay, so this includes any costs outside the Adirondack Park boundary or the Catskill Park town and village boundaries, like we talked about before, the eligible areas. The indirect or overhead costs, examples of indirect costs include rent, telephone service, utilities, and general administrative support. So we just want to make sure that that's not part of what the grant is funding. Salaries and other expenses of elected officials. We love it when they're involved in the project and supporting it, but it's not something that the grant reimburses. Cost of preparing the grant application, just know that that's not something that can be charged because the actual activities have to occur within the contract term, and that didn't. So, costs associated with planning activities not integral to either the implementation of the project or the development of a comprehensive plan and or local land use plan. So this includes that what we talked about earlier about what do we mean by planning being integral to a project or part of a project, that's so obviously comprehensive plans and local land use plans are eligible, and then you need to show how the planning isn't just a general organizational or strategic plan. Costs outside of the start and end dates, and costs paid from other state or federal funding sources. So that pretty much wraps up the costs that are not eligible for grant reimbursement. There are a few categories of costs where they are eligible, but there are limits. Fringe is only allowed to be 15% of the salaries and wages. And then grant award administration is limited to 15% of the grant amount. For administration of the grant, what we're talking about is contract administration, getting the contract in place, making sure that the reporting happens on time, that we're putting in progress reports and payment requests. A lot of times, the local towns don't have that capacity. It's not super complicated, but it's work that needs to be done in order to keep the project moving and to do a great job. So we are fine with that being part of a grant request if it's needed, and we would support that and recommend it if it's needed. So just make the case for it and put in for it, but it is limited to 15% of the grant amount. It's an important note that I'm sure Jeff will cover when he's going through the actual application, but make sure to remember that when you are doing uploads, always upload a single PDF for each question. You can't do multiple attachments. If you do try to upload multiple PDFs per question, it just overwrites and erases the first one. So take all your maps, for example, print a PDF, put them in PDF, combine them together into one PDF, or put them all into a Word document, print that to PDF, whatever you got to do to get one PDF that has all your separate files and pictures and maps and stuff in it for each question. Things that you should be aware of before applying, should you receive an award. The prevailing wage requirements do apply. This is New York State public funding. It's in the state constitution, actually the prevailing wage law. Municipal projects involving construction or maintenance of buildings, roads, trails, park amenities, and similar improvements on public property using this grant funding or other public funding are public works. So those types of projects undertaken by a not-for-profit on public property are also public works under this grant program because it's public funding. So you look at, is it public property, is it public funding, does it have a public purpose? And even if the work is being done by a not-for-profit, the Labor Department has opined routinely that that's public work. So there are projects undertaken by a not-for-profit on private land, say their own land. In that case, you need to assess the public purpose to determine whether it's a public works process or project, and that's kind of a complicated question that I don't have the expertise on, but I would recommend anyone who's concerned about that to contact the Department of Labor Bureau of Public Works to get their input. MWBE requirements will apply. The thresholds are if your grant is over, your contract is over $25,000 for general work, then we're going to ask you to document the due diligence to include MWBEs in outreach and attempt to contract with them. And same for if your construction project is at $100,000 grant. So that could apply to some of the grants that we award for construction as well this time around. Please keep in mind that obviously the ADA standards for public facilities are in the 2010 ADA ADAG accessibility guidelines. There also, what people might not be aware of is that there are federal guidelines for outdoor recreation areas, and the link is here. It's in the RFA. This is for trails, recreation access routes, fishing access, waterway access. Places that aren't really the built environment, but they're outdoor developed areas. It's what it's termed for. So if you're doing work in the outdoor environment, there are guidelines to help you design your work to be accessible, and that we will look for that to be part of the project. So should you receive an award, continued is that you might be able to get a 25% advance payment. If you're a not-for-profit, you basically just have to ask for it and demonstrate the need through a request. If you are a municipality, you can only get that advance if your project is for construction. So again, you need to request that, and you can if it's for construction. We do have 10% retainage, so let's see, we're funding a smaller part of a larger project, and the grant funding was scheduled to be expended in year 1, but we want to make sure that everything through year 3 actually gets completed, and we'll hold back 10% of payment until everything's completed. And we're handling quarterly reporting in the gateway, which will help you with when the time comes, if necessary. We also want to be sure that for infrastructure projects, there's a sign that acknowledges the funding from DEC and the EPF, and a lot of projects produce printed documents or videos, online materials, advertisements. DEC and the Environmental Protection Fund needs to be acknowledged so that everybody knows that their money is at work. The historic preservation review requirements will apply if a project involves properties listed on the state or national registers. We will refer those over to OPRHP and help as needed, and just follow their standard processes. So we do, with all that said, we do actually help you succeed with your project. We have a lot of prior awards and completed projects. If you are interested to go to the DEC website, this is not the 2019 grant webpage, but it's the page above that in the hierarchy. It's the actual Adirondack Park and Catskill Park webpage. And there's a list of prior awards, and you can see in different categories what's been done and what their basic current status is. So that, believe it or not, that photo was Twin Mountain in the Catskill Park in Indian Head Wilderness. When I first saw it, I thought for sure it had to be Adirondacks. So yeah, good luck, and thank you for hanging in there, and please stay tuned because Jeff is going to walk you through point by point the actual application in the gateway. Now that you kind of know what we're looking for, he's going to show you how to do it.
Okay, so requirements for applying to a grant for this grant via the New York State Grants Gateway. All right, so first of all, I want to point out that we do have a technical help desk. We're available Mondays through Fridays, 8 to 4 p.m. We have a phone number, 474-5595. We have an email address, grantsgateway@its.ny.gov. And we have a website that I'll get to in a few minutes. It's called the Grants Management website. On there you'll find a manual that encompasses everything that a vendor or an applicant would do, guidance for registration, guidance for pre-qualification. If you're a not-for-profit, you'll have to deal with that. Some videos and other webinars that we have. So we have generic application webinars that we offer every Tuesday and Thursday. We have pre-qualification or document vault webinars also every Tuesday and Thursday. And we have registration if you are a new entity, that's on Thursday mornings. So feel free to call us, email us. The help desk is very responsive and very knowledgeable about general information of the gateway and specific grant information as well. So registration. So if you're already registered, you don't have to worry about this. But all entities that wish to apply for grants in the state must be registered in the Grants Gateway. So this is a offline process, actually. It includes filling out a form, printing it out first, filling it out, and actually mailing it via the U.S. Postal Service or whatever, FedEx, to us, and you have to get it signed and notarized first. So don't think you can do that a week before the grant is due and you can start registering and getting going, because you might need a week to get this registration taken care of. So do it as soon as you can. There's information about registration also on the Grants Management website that I'll go to, and also in the Grants Gateway itself. So there's a portion of the gateway called the portal, and that's for anybody to visit that doesn't have to log in. And there's information about what grants are available, and like I said, also about registration. So again, if you've already registered in the past, you don't need to do it again, but you do need to be pre-qualified, and that's what the next page talks about. So document vault pre-qualification. This is essentially us ensuring that we're working with well-run not-for-profits. So all not-for-profit organizations applying for grants in the Gateway must be pre-qualified in the Gateway prior to the grant application due dates. So You don't have to be pre-qualified right now. You don't have to be pre-qualified before you start your application, but you do have to be that date and time, which is, what was it, June 7th at 3 p.m., June 7th at 3 p.m. If you're not pre-qualified by then, your application will be ignored, basically. So refer to the Grants Management website again for information about that. There's a video on it. There's Help Desk is very knowledgeable about that as well. So your organization must be pre-qualified, like I said, the date and time the application is due. It must be in either one of these statuses, pre-qualified or pre-qualified open, which means it's pre-qualified, but you're working on it to try to update documents for the next dates that are required. And again, governmental entities do not need to pre-qualify. So that's another benefit maybe of if your project involves a not-for-profit but going through with the governmental entity as the lead applicant, because they don't have to worry about getting pre-qualified. All right, so roles, grantee roles, this is something that trips up a lot of people, so we want to point this out. It talks about it in the RFA, talks about it in the vendor manual that I referred to, but when your system or when your organization is set up in the system, we set up 1 or 2 people in this role here, the Grantee Delegated Administrator. And the system is role-based, so you can only do in the gateway what the role is allowed to do. So a Grantee Delegated Administrator can add or edit user accounts and manage the document vault, that pre-qualification process. So they can't do anything else. They can't start an application, they can't work on contracts, they can't submit an application. They can only manage, edit or add user accounts or manage that pre-qualification. So this person can add a new account. They could add a grantee, as we see up here in the top left. This is somebody that can start and edit an application. They can save the application changes. One thing they can't do is submit it to us. So when it comes time for the deadline, you're going to need somebody else to actually submit it. So you could have one of these other 2 roles here on the right. There's the Grantee Contract Signatory and the Grantee System Administrator. They both do essentially the same things. You can see that they have all the grantee abilities. They can also submit the application. So same thing here with the Grantee System Administrator. They have all the grantee and grantee contract signatory abilities, and they have some additional admin abilities that you don't really need to worry about here. But again, you need to have at least one person in one of these roles, the Grantee Contract Signatory or the Grantee System Administrator, in order to actually submit your application. So why would you need all these roles? Well, if you have a large organization or if you want to outsource it to a grant writer or something like that, maybe that's a reason why you'd have someone in the role of grantee. But you don't need that role. If you're the only person doing it, you can just get yourself set up in one of these other roles, again, the Grantee Contract Signatory or the Grantee System Administrator. All right, so some other notes about it. Like I said, the Grantee Delegated Admin can add new accounts and work in the document vault, but cannot work on grant applications. You must have somebody that's able to submit it. And again, Grantee Contract Signatory or Grantee System Administrator. Grantee is really only useful if you have somebody else that you want to do the work but not actually submit it. And it's certainly acceptable if one person has more than one role, so multiple roles and thus multiple accounts in the system, that's fine. You can even use the same email address and the same password. But you do not need to have different accounts if you need different roles. So if you're a very small organization, maybe you're the Grantee Delegated Admin, and you set yourself up with a Grantee Contract Signatory role so that you can start the application and submit it. So that's no problem. We leave it up to you to decide who gets what roles and who can do what. So you're going to start an application. I'll be doing one in a few minutes. You'll log in with one of those appropriate roles that I just talked about. This trips up a lot of people too. A lot of people end up looking in the portal thinking that's where they go to start their application. That's not where you go. If you're logged in as one of these people, Grantee, Grantee Contract Signatory, or Grantee System Administrator, on your home page there'll be this button here that says View Opportunities. You click on it, it brings you to a search field, and what I'm going to do is just search for the word Smart Growth, and that'll show both Adirondack and Catskill, and we'll take it from there. So once you see the results, here's Catskill, here's Adirondack, you can click on either one of them, and you can see information about it, and at the very bottom of that information page is the link or the button to start your actual application. So I'll be doing that in just a matter of minutes. Some next steps, this is what I would do if I were you. Obviously, you have to be registered first. Now, you can look at the RFA first, but you can't get anything started in the gateway unless you're registered. If you're a not-for-profit, make sure you're pre-qualified or at least working to get pre-qualified by or before June 7th. And about that date, pre-qualification itself requires, I'd say at least 5 days. We say 5 business days for us to review your information. And if you send it in and it takes us 5 days to review it and we find problems that make us reject it back to you, if you're on the 5th day and you're on June 7th and it's still not done, you're going to be in trouble. So again, start that as soon as possible if you're a not-for-profit. Like I just said, the next step would be make sure you have people in the right roles. Download the RFA, read it in its entirety, make sure you're familiar with it. And like Dylan was saying, we've got all the questions in there that you're going to need to be answering. So start preparing to answer the application questions. Start your work plan. Start a budget. We've got some templates for you to fill out as well. Get everything, get all the information together, and then you can actually start getting it into the gateway. So start your application as soon as you can, and certainly submit your application as soon as you can. We suggest, 24 or 48 hours in advance. There's times when people will start, and Dylan talked about this, try to submit their application, and they realize they forgot something or several things, and they get an error message, and they have to scramble at the last minute to do it, and we've seen many people miss that deadline because of that. So don't get yourself in that position. So again, you can start on your application even if you aren't pre-qualified yet. You can submit it even if you're not pre-qualified yet. Just make sure both are done prior to June 7th. Okay, so I've got a few pages open here I want to show you first. So first of all is the DEC website. So you can navigate to it by going to dec.ny.gov. If you scroll down all the way to the bottom, you can see, what's the section again? Apply for a grant. So right here under Help, Apply for a Grant. And in here, there is a couple different sections that it's split up in. And if we scroll down, we get to Land and Forest Protection Grants, and you can see Adirondack and Catskill Parks Community Smart Growth is right here. So you can see I've already clicked on this link. If I click it, it gives us information about it, another warning or alert that it's due at 3 o'clock on June 7th, information about the opportunities, link to the gateway, RFA information, so a lot of information here. You may be here in this webinar because you found this here. In a few days, we'll have a recording of this webinar. We'll post it up, and they'll put it up here on the website as well. So again, that was the DEC website all the way down the bottom to grant opportunities, apply for grant, and into this section here, and you can view it. All right, so that's the DEC website. I also wanted to point out the grants management website, and that's grantsmanagement.ny.gov.
Awesome website.
We just redid it, so it was pretty bad before. You can see there's the different sections here, and most of what's in these sections can also be found if you just keep scrolling on the main page. So if you're looking for the overall vendor manual, under training and guidance, there's a grant applications or grant applicants one here. And if you were to scroll down, you can see documents, and you can get to the actual documents. The last one is that manual that I was talking about here, the vendor user manual. So it's a PDF you could download, and that'll give you generic information about how to navigate the gateway and how to start an application, how to fill it out. If I go back up, just wanted to point out, or if I go backwards, the resources for grant applicants has links to the webinars, documents like I just said, and some videos we have, and then specific information about specific topics. So if you need to get registered, you can get there from here. If you want to get pre-qualified, that's the pre-qualification section here. And you can see, you can walk through the steps here and information about it. All right, so again, grantsmanagement.ny.gov. And also on here is our help desk. Same information I provided before, but if you do need help and you forget the number, right here we've got the help desk email and that phone number as well. We said we're open 8 to 4. We do have a after-hours support desk. which is the software developer, and you can contact them on that 800 number. And usually they answer questions up until 8 p.m. if you're stuck with maybe a login or something like that. They're not going to be able to get into details about the grants themselves. All right, so let's do that, though. Let's get into logging in, or at least going to the gateway and finding the grant opportunities. So it's at grantsgateway.ny.gov, and I always like to point out, a lot of people are in the habit of typing www. Don't do that, because if you do, you get to this that says the site is not secure. Yeah, you could click on more information and go to the website, but you're not on a secure website with a certificate. So that's just the way the state has set it up. It's not a problem. Just don't go to the www version. Just go to grantsgateway.ny.gov, or click on the link from the RFP or from the DEC page that we were just looking at. This website allows you to browse search for grant opportunities, which I'll do in a minute. This is where you can sign up to be notified of new opportunities that are posted. Too late for this one because it's already been posted. And this is where you can register your organization if it's the first time. You click on this Request Access Now. There's a registration form here to download. Another form that you need to fill out in many cases, the Substitute W-9 form. The registration form includes instructions on how to do it and talks about who needs to provide that W-9 form. All right, so going back, like I said, you can also browse or search. So browse will just give you a whole listing of everything that's out there, but if you want to be more specific, we'll go to search and search for the words Smart Growth. We do that and hit the search button. You can see we find 2 awards out there, or 2 grants out there that are available, and others from historical grants that were available. So 2019 Adirondack, 2019 Catskill. I'm going to click on Adirondack, and it gives information about it. The grant opportunity ID is the unique ID. Your application number, if you were to start one, would be this ID and then a 5-digit number after it. So the first person to start one is DEC01-SG80K-2019-00001. The agency, the full name of it, Dylan's name, the contact email, Lance Forrest at DEC, just a paragraph or a couple paragraphs about what this is all about. And then on the right, we have, again, that due date, June 7th at 3 p.m., information about the awards. So there's $1,050,000 available. Awards will be between $11,000 and $100,000. Other information here, Q&A. Remember that Q&A document. You have to send questions here prior to May 24th, and they'll be uploaded here, and I presume on the DEC website as well. Mm-hmm. But you can always come here, click on this link. There'll be a link here, and you can view the Q&A document. It's a rolling document, or are you going to do it once? Okay. Rolling. So if you check it, let's say in 2 weeks, you're going to want to check it again at the end by the 24th. So it may have changed, or there may be new questions that have been answered in there. And down here is just who can apply and kind of what the target of the grants are for. Now, what we didn't do is click on this View Grant Opportunity. This, since we're in the portal, we haven't logged in yet, this will give us the RFP, or the RFA that we were talking about. So we click on it, and I can open. You probably will want to save the PDF. And this is that document that Dylan went through. And I'm not going to go through it again, but I just want to point out the sections that he said. Remember, in here is the list of the actual questions and the scoring criteria. So it would be certainly a wise idea for you to have those open to kind of formulate how you're going to answer the questions. So they'll give you the questions, and you can, what I would do is I would take a Word document and start answering the questions in a Word document so that I could copy and paste them into the Grants Gateway when I'm ready. Okay, so I'm going to log into our testing site, which is an exact copy of the live site, but I can do what I want and not have to worry about affecting live data. So we were at the portal. Remember the browse, search, notification, registration buttons. But you want to log in up here in the top left. So we click on the login button, and it asks for your username and password. All right, so I'm going to log in as someone in the role of grantee, and that is jgrantee1. And if you forgot your password, you can see there's a link here, forgot password. That'll allow you to reset your password. The system will give you a temporary password that you can log in with and then change your password. All right, so I think my saved one is different, so let me just type in my password. Okay, so it says, welcome, Jeff. I'm in the role of grantee. That's good because we know that's somebody that can start an application, but you might remember I can't submit it, so we'll have somebody else do that. Just a little layout of the screen here. On the top, think of it as searching options, so you can search the portal, which we already looked at. You can search for applications that your organization has already started or completed. We'll do that in a little while as well. You can search for contracts that your organization's been awarded, payments that you might be dealing with through the gateway. Not all contracts use the payment system. Same deal with progress reports. If you had a contract, you'd be able to submit progress reports. And then tasks, if you had a contract, you'd have tasks as well at certain times. So that's searching. And then the black bar here is kind of reference. We've got some training material links. We've got information about your organization. So somebody before had asked, how can I add a new user? Well, I'm not the right type of person to do it. I'm a grantee, but I'll show you the steps to do it. So you would go to organization. This is if you were the grantee delegated admin. Now I happen to have two organizations here, so ignore that. You click on organizations. You'd be on this page. You could go to organization members. And then it shows current members here, but there'd be a link for add members. So current members, you would click on add members, and then there'd be one more link that says new members. So organization, members, add member, new member. And with that, you would have a form that you could fill out, allowing you to give the person's name, email address, title, and of course the role that you're assigning them to. You assign them to it, and they'll get an email with their user ID and another email with their temporary password. All right, the blue bar is kind of an action button. Right now there's no actions we can do, but as we go through, you can see there's a show help button, but as we go through, there'll be a save button, an add button, some other buttons that'll allow you to perform actions on the page that you're on. So going from the bottom to the top, eventually you'll have a task here. In the very bottom, it would say My Tasks, and once we start an application, we'll have a task. The other thing is an inbox. So you can ignore the inbox. All that is a copy of any emails you might have received from the system. And then finally, where we want to go right now is View Opportunities. So to start your application, you log in from the home page, you go to View Opportunities. And remember how we searched in the portal before. I'm going to search for the word Smart Growth, words. And when I hit search, there's two options, two opportunities that are available to me. You can see they were posted on April 16th. Like we said, they're due on June 7th. And I'm going to pick Adirondack. All right, so I clicked on View Opportunities. I searched for it. I clicked on the Adirondack one. And now I want to apply. So remember when we were in the portal, that button, because we went a different way, we went here through the portal, that button said View Grant Opportunity. But let me just do this path one more time. From the home page, View Opportunities, search for it. Probably the word smart would work fine because there's probably not too many grants with that name, with that word in it. Click on the one you want. I'm doing Adirondack. Scroll down and apply for grant opportunity. Okay, so I'm in my application main page, as you can see here. And I'm application number 10, DEC01-SGADK-2019-00010. You can see there's some new buttons here. We've got menu. This will bring you to where we are right now, the main page. The forms menu is where you'll be doing all of your work and where you'll find all those forms that we talked about. Status changes, we'll deal with that later. Management tools, there's a couple things here that might be useful to you. We'll look at it later. And you can ignore progress reports and related documents. That's related for if you have a contract. One other thing to point out, this details button here, if I click on it, it toggles open and close. And you can see some general information, but one thing I want to point out is the current status. Right now we're in application in process, and of course it reminds us of that due date of 6/7 at 3 p.m. All right, so let's get started by going to the Forms menu. So notice I can hover on it, and we see the menu pop up, but it's a lot easier if you just click on the words Forms menu, and the whole menu will be shown here. All right, so I'm going to go through the sections here, but I want to point out, before I get to the details, I want to go down here to the pre-submission uploads. So I'm going to go from the top and then skip down there, and you'll see why in a minute. So up in the top here, the first thing is contract document properties. This is not something you need to do. You really don't even need to bother looking at it if you don't want to. But what it is if you were to be awarded a contract, what documents make up the contract? So first of all, the master grant contract, which is the state's main contract template. You can get an idea of what it is here. The attachment A1 is the program or agency-specific terms and conditions. So if you were to receive a contract, this document A1 would tell you the other terms and conditions that DEC has. So you can click on View File and view it. It's also showing that a contract would include the budget, which will work out in the Forms menu here, the work plan, same deal, and the attachment D, payment and reporting schedule, which is just part of the contract. If there were any other documents connected to it, they'd be here. You can see there are none. So again, back to the Forms menu, contract document properties is just an FYI section. Application information. We can print our application. Right now it's blank, but at the end, you might want to use that to give you an opportunity to review what you've done. A link to the RFP or RFA is right here. There's some instructions, which, oops, it's going to give me an error here. Don't worry about the error I'm getting. The error is because I'm in this test site, and if I just copy and paste it, you would just click on it, but I have to take away these characters here. So the instructions, this is tips for the gateway, how to start your application, how to go through it. So essentially what I'm about to do is all here in this document, this 8-page document. Okay? And application versions, once you submit your application, about 5 or 10 minutes after, there'll be a PDF here that will allow you to view what you have submitted. All right, so before I get to these other sections, let's go down here to the pre-submission uploads and take a look at some of these documents that Dylan referred to before. So first of all, there's a worksheet to help you plan out your work plan. And I know I said we'd probably be done by 4. I'm doubting we will right now. It'll probably be more like 4:10. So right here, if you were to click it, I have to do this quick shortcut thing. But if you clicked on that document, this document will help you organize your project and how you're going to put in the answers in the gateway. So you can see project name, work plan period. Remember, it's probably going to be around November, and it can't go longer than 3 years. So you've got a project summary. This allows up to 50,000 characters. That's a lot of writing to do. So feel free to type in here or even a separate Word document if you want to get it organized, but it does have to be less than 50,000 characters. There's also something called the organizational capacity. This basically is saying what makes your organization capable of doing this. How do you have the right people, the right experience, the right equipment, things like that. So what makes you able to actually perform this project. And then the work plan, which we showed in that PowerPoint, which is broken down to objectives, tasks, performance measures. So an objective is the overall goal or the main milestone. Tasks are kind of milestones along the way to get to that objective, and performance measures are things that are measurable that you can say at steps along the way. So, if you're developing, if you're repairing a building or adding a building, it might be construction steps. If you're doing design and brochures or something like that, or a plaque or a guide, what we call it, a guide plaque or something. Kiosk. You'd have maybe design it. That would be one step. You'd have another step would be to sign off on it, get it produced, things like that. So this is breaking down all the different objectives, tasks, and performance measures. You can see there's room for names and descriptions for each, and you'll see when I get into the gateway why you need those. All right, so back to the pre-submission uploads. There's a sample municipal endorsement. If you don't want to write one by hand, we've got one where you can just kind of fill in the blanks. This Smart Growth Environmental Assessment form, this is something that is required. You can see this red asterisk here. So This, should I show it? Or okay. So this, again, if you click on the template here, and I have to just copy the shortcut and change the name. So this is the document that helps you with the questions. These are the eligibility questions in the beginning.
So the first two questions, if you answer no to both of those, then you don't have to fill out the rest of the form. But if it's if it's public entity and if it's construction or reconstruction, then you do have to do the rest of the form.
Okay.
But we do ask that everyone uploads that, and there's a reminder in the program specific questions to remind you to upload that, even if you're just stating no to both.
Okay. So note this is a fillable PDF. You can fill it out either by hand or on your computer. And as you go through, you'll of course have to save it if you're filling it out, and then attach it back to the gateway back here. So I'm not going to do these attachments until the end. I just want to show you what they are. Attachment S is that you have a written policy for sexual harassment. This is a state law now, and it's important that you fill it out and make sure that you're aware of this. Should I show that too?
No, well, yeah, sure.
It'll be quick.
So the thing with this is it's a certification that you have the policy that is in compliance with Department of Labor. I did get a question, can we just upload our policy? And that would put us as, Department of Environmental Conservation employees in the position of deciding whether or not your sexual harassment policy is in compliance with it. Right, which, we can't really do. So that's why we're looking for the certification.
Yeah, so just fill out the form stating that you are in compliance, making sure, of course, that you are first.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, there's a placeholder. If there's something else that along the way we realize we want you to attach, you might be instructed to put something here. If there's something additional that you feel needs to go here, you can put it there. We're not asking for you to give us information that we're not asking for, though. We don't need these applications to be longer than they already are. So use your discretion in using that. So let's go back to the forms menu. You've looked at the RFA. You've looked at you've taken the time to fill out answers to the questions on a Word document. You've taken the time to fill out your work plan document, and you're now ready to get into the gateway and enter those answers and those uploads and information. So we'll start here, program information, project site addresses. This is simply the address of, where you're running this project out of. So I'm not going to be very creative. Jeff's my project, and it'll be 123 Main Street. I don't know. I'll just say Albany. And your county and your zip. Now you can see there's two other fields here. As a regional council, you don't have to select that. What that would be is the governor's regional economic councils. We don't need to know that. But you can see there's also this agency-specific region. We just want to know if you're in Region 5 or Region 6, and you can see it spells out those those counties.
Or 3 or 4 for the Catskills.
Yep.
Same difference.
All right, so after you enter information on a page, you have to hit the Save button. So we get this green light that says information has been saved, and there's no errors on the page. They're required fields. So if I didn't fill out, let's say, this description, and I hit Save, yes, it'll save the rest of the page, but it'll give me an error that says project name description is a required field. So that's fine. I could log out, come back tomorrow, start working on it again. I won't lose any of this information, but it will never let me submit my application unless I've got something in this field. So let's hit Save again, and the error will go away. All right, back to the Forms menu, and you can see I can hover and get into the subcategory that I'm in right now, or just click on Forms menu and go back down to where I left off, and I want to go back to Program Specific Questions now. So again, these are all those questions. You're asked first to provide a project title. This is the name of your project. I'm just going to call it Jeff's Adirondack Project again. Now you need to go in and fill the answers to these questions that hopefully you've already written down in a Word document or something like that you can just copy and paste. So first of all, you've got a project description. It's up to 1,000 characters, and like it says, you'll be asked to provide more project details later in the work plan. This is just kind of an overall, clearly and briefly describe the scope of work in your project. So I'm just going to write, here is my answer. Something like that. And hopefully you would have copy and pasted. Now, notice, here we are in Internet Explorer, and we only have 3 lines of text visible. That's another reason why we think it's a good idea to start doing it in Word or something similar. If you were in Chrome or Firefox, it actually gives you the expanding window buttons here, or expanding box buttons. However, that'll create an error if you get to the work plan section. The work plan section, you can't use anything but Internet Explorer 11 in it. So be aware of that. That's something we're working on to address. But right now, we really do want you to be in IE 11, especially when you get onto the work plan section. All right, so eligibility. Again, I'm not here to show you how to answer the questions, how to appropriately answer them. I'm just going to put in text. Now you can see I went over what I copy and pasted is more than 250 characters, so I need to get below or at 250. If you have an upload, you can do that. Just click on Browse and attach something. I have something I just called a sample attachment. Obviously, you'd be attaching the real document. All right, so I'll go through these questions and answer them as I go through here. So I've got attachments for all of these. You don't have to, if you remember. These are my site plans. So again, I might have more than one document. We want you to upload one PDF file containing photos that clearly represent the current conditions and the site plan. So you may need to combine documents into one PDF. All right, seeker. Maybe I've got an attachment for this. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly.
Now we're in the scoring.
So, right, we went through the eligibility section. Now we're in the parts that are scored. And I'm going to skip question 16 for whatever reason. Let's just say I forgot it, and or I want to get to it later, just to show you what happens when you skip or miss a question.
These ones have optional uploads.
Yep. So I'm not uploading here just for the sake of time, but obviously if you had an upload required or that you wanted to include with, in this case, number 19, you click on the Browse button and attach it. Now, one thing I haven't done here yet is I haven't saved. So let's do that. The system has a timeout. It'll time you out after 20 minutes of inactivity. And you may think of what we were just doing is activity, but it's not. It's not activity unless you save the page or you move to a different page. So don't get stuck in that where you're typing and copying and pasting and attaching and somebody interrupts you or you have to go to the restroom or something and you forgot to save. If you come back, you might have been logged out and you would have just lost all the stuff you just did. So it's okay if you save periodically and you get these errors. We want you to save periodically every, no more than 10 or 15 minutes because like I said, the timeout is after 20 minutes. So I missed 16, 20, 21, 22, 23. That's okay though. I can go down and fix them now. Or let's say I log out for the day and I come back the next day. So I log back in. I can go to Applications and search for that application. Or I can go to Task because now I have a task because I'm the person that started this application and I can click on it and get back into it. So if I clicked it, I could get to it that way. Or if I go to Applications and I search for, let's say, the word growth. Show me all applications that my organization has with the name growth in it. And I found the one, application number 10. All right, so I'll click on it. It brings me to the main page, and I can go to the Forms menu and pick up where I left off, which was right here on Program Specific Questions. So I'm going to answer the ones on the end, but I'll forget to answer number 16 right now. All right, so 20 is a yes or no. 21, again, is text and an upload. 22 is text and a required upload. So that's the cost effectiveness. So Make sure that you do that. And then 23 is the sexual harassment form. Well, you know what? I didn't do that yet, so let me not answer that one yet. All right, so I hit save and I forget, and I didn't do 16 and 23. That's okay, I'll get to them later. So I go to the forms menu. I've taken care of the program specific questions, although we know we have an error because we didn't do 2 sections of it. Now we have the budget. The budget is broken down into these different categories, and I'm going to just put in a couple examples for 2 or 3 categories. So let's say I have salary. Let's say my project is for handouts, maybe a kiosk or something, or it's handouts and information about this trail that we have or something. All right, so who do I have here in salary? I've got the program director. What is their role responsibility? Let's say directing the program. You're going to be a little more descriptive, and we may want you to put something in here like name here, like the person's name, their title, what they do, something like that. Agree? Yes. Mm-hmm. That's because this is the only line that ends up on the contract. This is so we want as much information here as we can. Number of people in that title. What is their annualized salary? So you may not be paying them for the whole year, or they may not be working towards this specific project for the whole year, but the state still wants to know what their salary would be if it was annualized. So I'm just going to round numbers here and make it $50,000. We're going to say they work 40 hours a week for 20% funded, so 20% of their time is devoted to this project. However, this is not just 12 months. We're going to say this is going to take us 36 months. So over the 36 months, 20% of 50,000 is, I got to do the math that I remember. So 20% of 50,000 is, of course, 10,000. So times 3 is going to be $30,000. All right. If you had match or other, remember Dylan talked about that. You can put those in there. I'll save that for later. So I hit save, and I've now entered one person. Okay. My category totals up to $30,000, but I have somebody else. So I can click on add, and I'm going to add interns. Some more info, put that on the next line. I'm just going to say 1 right here. And again, I'm going to use round numbers, $40,000. So let's say they are working 40 hours a week at 20% for, again, 36 months. So that'll be, did I say, no, I said 20%. I wanted 25%. So 25% of 40,000, so 10 times 3 is going to be another 30,000. So the system won't do the math for you. You have to do the math. All right, so now that I've entered 2 items, I can toggle between them with a drop-down. I could click add and add another, and keep going if I want to in personal services salary. All right, so if we go back to the forms menu, there is a narrative for every budget category, and you should fill that out, even though it's not required. I'm assuming you want it.
Yep.
So provide an explanation of any exceptions in staffing patterns and/or annual salary costs. So maybe there's someone who's only working a couple months, and you're explaining that, or you're just explaining what the different the salary items are here. So
that's just part of the budget detail and reasonableness of cost
Yep.
that will be evaluated.
Okay. All right, and then I'll hit save. Okay, back to the forms menu. So I'm not going to do fringe, but if you did, you could go here to fringe. You could fill it out. We'd like your calculation in the description. So I have some old ones I've put in here. So we want the calculations, and once you hit save, you'll have the number value here. Remember, there's guidance in the RFA about it. I'm going to go down to contractual, and let's say I'm contracting with an organization to help us design and produce some handouts. So handout with the org, and let's say I'm asking for $20,000 or $2,000. All right, so I entered in something in contractual. Now, I don't need match funds. You heard about the match funds. I'm going to just show you how it works, though. So let's say for whatever reason I have 1,000 in match funds and I have 1,000 in other funds. So it's explained in the RFA what they are, but I just wanted to show you that, you know, those fields are open. That's where you just type it in. You're not done just by once you click in and put in a number. There's now a match worksheet that I have to fill out because I said I have $1,000 in match. So we have to explain where that match comes from. We'll get to that in a few minutes. So back to the forms menu, back to our budget. I did contractual. I want to do the contractual narrative. I'm not going to do it right here. I think you get the point, but you have to fill it out and explain that category as well. I'm going to do one more under other. So other expenses, I have some supplies. So we're going to call this display cases. So we're explaining it a little, and we're asking for $5,000 for that. And again, if you had match or if you had other for that, you could type those in there and then hit save. All right. So remember, I would have already thought all this out and worked it out on a worksheet. But you can just kind of do it freehand here. But of course, you wanted to have done the math, and obviously there's a lot of homework related to getting a budget together. So when you're here again, you've probably already done the homework and you're just typing in the values you already know. So if I go to the expenditure summary, I'm going to get an error. And it's telling me that, well, I put in match funds, but I didn't enter the worksheet, the match worksheet. So that's fine. I expected that. But this is a roll-up of all those categories we did. So remember, we had $30,000 plus $30,000 in salary. We had $2,000 in contractual, and we had $5,000 in other. And that adds up to $67,000. That, of course, is above $11,000, which is the minimum, and below $100,000, which is the maximum. Or is it 110? 100. And then it says that I put in match funds here, and I have a 50% match in this category because, of course, 1,000 is 50% of 2,000. All right? So where we were talking about the match calculation, that's where it comes from. It's saying that it's in per of the grant funds we've asked for, another 50% is in match funds. So it's not the total project. The total project is actually 1% here. All right? So let's take care of this match problem. If I go down the Forms menu, there is a match worksheet here, and I can fill that out. And I can explain my match and give more information, describe it, what is the source, and what's the amount. So if it was 1,000, that's easy enough. I could do that. Or maybe there's several sources, and if there was more than one source, once I hit save, I now have an add button, and I could add the second source and third or whatever to add up to whatever the total is in the budget itself. So if this number doesn't match this number, it's going to give us an error. Okay? So back to the Forms menu. The next section is the work plan. So we've already filled it out with our worksheet. We know what we want to say. We start off with the overview form. Remember, that's that one where you've got up to 50,000 characters to type. So let's say my project is going to be 12/1/2019 to 11/31/2021. Oops, what did I do wrong? It doesn't like what I wrote, but why not?
30.
Oh, yeah. There's not 31 days.
Hopefully that's it.
Yep. All right, and what's my project summary? So you've already written it. I'm just going to, type a whole bunch of information here. Same deal for organizational capacity, and you'll save the page. So you've already written that information, and you're just copying and pasting here, saving it to enter the info. All right, back to the Forms menu, and then the work plan properties. So if you've worked on a Grants Gateway application before, the work plan is different now. If you haven't done one since, say, fall of 2018, it's been updated and it's different. It's a lot easier to use. It's all on one page. So the work plan properties page starts off with just one field. What is your first objective name? So in the interest of time, I'm not going to really put in real names except for this one. Let's just say create an ongoing environmental education program.
So I didn't realize that. I guess the instructions that are in the RFA for work plan are
They may be outdated, but the worksheet is good because it's written for this.
Cool.
Here is the description. So if you ever to be awarded a contract from this, what's in here will actually end up on the contract. That doesn't mean we can't change things down the road. So there'll be a part of what's called the contract development phase where they may ask you to tweak some things here. So I hit save and objective 1, and then it says, well, you need to enter a task, and by the way, here's a blank for objective 2 as well. All right, so objective 1 requires at least one task. So I'll just say, here is the first task, here is info, and I can hit save. Now, if I had an objective 2, I could have started writing on that, but remember, every objective, you have to have at least one objective which has one or many tasks, which has one or many performance measures. So I have to at least have a 1, a 1.1, and a 1.1.1. All right, so here's my performance measure. Start ABC by whatever day. And what kind of, how are you going to capture this? Is it going to be text? Is it going to be integers? So you'll probably pick one of these first 3. Let's say text 500, and I explain it here. All right, so if I hit save, I've done the bare minimum of what I need for a work plan. I've got one objective, one task, and one performance measure. Well, what if I want another task? Here's another one. And I'm just going to start typing gibberish. So now I've got one objective with one task and a performance measure and another task that doesn't yet have a performance measure. And if I scroll to the top, it's giving me an error saying you need to have that performance measure. So I'll do the performance measure for 1.2.1. And you can see there's a browse button to attach something. That won't become part of the contract if you ever have a contract, but it might be something if it's a form you want filled out or you want to show something. It's rarely used, but it's an option if you want. So now I've got one objective with 2 tasks, and each one has one performance measure. I could add a second performance measure here. So now I've got 1.1 and 1.1.2. I can add a third. And I'm going to say I'm going to show you something you can do here. This was the third. All right, so I fill that out.
And as you are adding performance measures, just make sure that there is one distinct performance measure for each actual deliverable for your project.
Yep, okay.
So that we can track those.
So the reason I did this was I can reorder these if I want to. If I realize the one that I called this was the third really should be the second, I can hit this up arrow. And now 1.1.2 is the one that was called this was the third. So you can reorder them. You don't have to wipe them out and type over if you want to reorder them for whatever reason. So I've only done one objective. And I could start with a second and go through that same stuff that I just did, which I'm not going to. So we took care of that. And you can see they're color-coded. You can see I can collapse them if I want to. So if I'm done working on number 1, I can collapse them all and go down and expand number 2 and get working on that. So it's pretty easy to navigate. The plus button will expand them all. And it'll give you warnings if you didn't do something, because, like you missed the task for an objective or something like that. All right, so you fill that out. Now, a lot of people say, how can I preview this? You can't. The only way of previewing it is just sitting on this page and scrolling down and looking at it. So just kind of make sure it is the same as your worksheet that you worked out. All right, so I'm going to go back to the Forms menu. And the last thing to do here is those uploads. So we already showed it to you, but we want to make sure that you go in here. Remember, there's the work plan worksheet you can work on. There's that sample municipal endorsement. You would have added it to your Program Specific Questions. Smart Growth, so I filled out the form. Let's say I've already filled it out. I'm going to attach it here. The Attachment S, the sexual harassment policy. I have that as well. And this placeholder I don't have. So if I hit save on this page, I should have done it with missing an attachment, but I did all the required ones, which were these two with a red asterisk, so I don't get any errors. If I forgot to do one of those, I'd get the error. Now, if I were you, I would double check and make sure that what you've attached here is what you really intended to attach. So if I click on View File and I hit Open.
There's an emergency. Everybody has to leave.
Okay. All right. I don't know if you heard that, but there's an emergency. Everybody has to leave. So this is what I'll do. I will finish this in the form of the video, and the rest of this webinar will be on the end. I'm sorry, everybody's being told to leave here. So thanks, everybody.
Okay, so unfortunately I had to abruptly stop the webinar because we had an emergency in our building. It turns out it was not an emergency, but we didn't know that for 20 minutes or so. So the webinar is over, but I am picking up where I left off, and I'm going to finish the video here. So where I am is I'm going to log back in as the grantee, JGrantee1. Remember, this is the person that started the application. He can't submit it because he's not in the right role. He's a grantee. But I can go back to Applications, and it remembers the last search you did, so I'll search for growth. And I'll find it, the Smart Growth at Adirondack Park that I started, and it's still in process. I'll click on it, and I can pick up where I left off. And where I left off was I went to the Forms menu, and I filled everything out. So I filled out the Program Information section, and you'll remember I purposely didn't answer a few questions. I want to show you what happens when we have an error. I filled out the budget. I filled out the work plan, and I took care of the pre-submission uploads. So there was only 2 required uploads, you can see right here, the 2 with the asterisks, and we had the other documents here to help us organize our project. Okay, so I go back to the Forms menu, and I'm done. There's one last section if you need it. We prefer you don't use it unless it's something that's really needed, but the Grantee document folder is something where you can upload documents, anything that you want to. So if I had a document here, and I click Browse and I find that document, I can explain it to in the comments here and hit Save. And once I save it, that document's been saved. I could click on View File to verify what it is, and I could click on Add to add another one if I want. So I'm all done with the Forms menu, and I want somebody to submit this application. Remember, I can't. That would be under Status Changes, but you can see I don't have any options under Status Changes. So I want to have our signatory at our organization sign it, and review it and sign it, and she'll come across this and find out that there's some errors there. Let's pretend I don't remember that or I don't notice it. So she could just log in and go to Applications and search for it, just like I could. It doesn't matter that she doesn't have it as a task. If you wanted to give it to her as a task to make it easier, you could go to Management Tools, Add Edit People, and you can find somebody's name in the list of all the people at your organization. And I'm picking Barbara Signatory, and if I hit Save, it doesn't send her an email or anything, but it does give it to her as a task now. So if I log out as the grantee, and I log back in as Barbara Signatory, you can see, oops, wrong password. You can see that she is a Grantee Contract Signatory. Remember, that's one of the roles that can submit an application. And she has one task. The reason she has that task is because the grantee did that Add Edit People and assigned it to her, and there it is. But she could just as well go up to Applications, search for, let's say, the word SMART. These are all the applications my organization has with the word SMART in it, and of course there's only one. I click on it, and she's back to where I was as the grantee. She can go through the Forms menu. She can update questions if she wants to. So I can answer something that somebody else didn't, or I can add to it. Let's say I have more information here. She can type, that's no problem. She has the Save button. And she should see the questions 16 and 23 that I missed. Let's just go down to 23. This is the one that says, did you include the sexual harassment document? And yes, we did, so I can answer that and hit Save. And of course, I'll still have the one error because I didn't do question number 16. But I'm going to try to submit it anyway, and you'll see what happens. Now, if she was reviewing it for you, or if anybody was reviewing it, there's a couple things you can do. You can go through the Forms menu page by page like we did. You can also go to the Forms menu and go to Print Application. If I click on that, it's going to open up in a new tab, and it's showing me all the pages of my application that I just filled out in one long HTML page. I could print it, I could save it as a PDF, or I could just browse through it here and look at it. Now, the one thing it's not going to include, or two things it's not going to include, are any attachments I've made and also the work plan. So remember, we filled out our address. We picked the region. Remember, we answered all those questions. So here's my answer to number 1. Here's my answer to number 2. And it's saying that, by the way, I had an upload in number 2. It's not telling me what it is. If I wanted to see that upload, I would go back to the Forms menu, back to Program Specific Questions, and actually view what I attached here to number 2. If I click on View File, I can open it up, and you can see this is just a sample PDF document, but you would verify that this is the right document. Okay, so I'm back to the tab where I was actually previewing my application using that print application. So again, I can see all the answers we wrote. If I wanted to edit them, of course I can't edit it here. I would go back to the Grants Gateway and back to the question and edit it if I needed to. And of course, I'd have to hit save after. So you can use this to review your application. Make sure you got everything that you wanted. If you want to verify the attachments, again, you have to go back into the gateway. Here's my budget. So here's the salary detail for the program director. Here's the salary detail for the interns, and so on, all the other categories that I filled out. It ends with the summary of all my expenses here in my expenditure summary. It shows the match. You might remember this page from when we were viewing it before. Goes into our work plan, the project summary, which remember is up to 50,000 characters, and the organizational capacity, which is up to, I believe it was 4,000 characters, and the organizational capacity here that we filled out. The objectives, task, performance measures, you can see they are blank because the new version of the work plan doesn't move to this page, doesn't show on this print preview here. So you'd have to just look in the gateway itself to look at your work plan. And after that, it shows the attachments. Again, not the actual attachments. You can't actually click on them. So you should go into pre-submission uploads in the gateway and click on the view file links to make sure what you attached is really what you intended to attach. And that's the end of this print preview, this print application from the Forms menu. So let's say I've looked at it, I've previewed all my documents, I've looked at the print preview, everything looks good, I'm ready to submit it. Now we know it's not going to work because I have an error, but if I go to Status Changes, Application Submitted, and I try to apply that status, I get this error, and it says, wait a minute, you forgot question number 16 in Program Specific Questions. So I can click on that. It'll bring me right directly to Program Specific Questions, and it will allow me to go down here and take care of number 16, which here was a required field that I didn't fill out. So here's my answer. And I'll fill out number 16 and hit save. So that should take care of the error. You might notice up here there's another way to check for errors, this check global errors. It runs through the whole document and says nope, no errors, meaning that there was nothing with a red asterisk that I had to fill out. I can go back to the Forms menu by clicking here. Remember, I just clicked check global errors here. There's also an option to do that here under Management Tools, Check for Errors. But I'm done with checking for errors. I know my document is complete, so I'm now ready to submit it. Of course, this is before the deadline of June 7th at 3 p.m. So if I go to Status Changes and apply the status of Application Submitted, it comes up with this agreement basically saying you are who you say you are, you're allowed to submit on behalf of your organization, you haven't given your password away, and you agree to that, and it's now submitting your application. Wait and let it process here, and it'll refresh your page, and your application has been submitted. So how do you know that you've submitted your application? There's several ways. Number one, under the details, it's now in a different status. Remember before it was in application in process, and now it's in the status of assignment of reviewers. That's one way of knowing it. Another way is simply the fact that we don't have a task anymore. If I go home, you can see there's no more tasks here in my task box. And another way is that you'll receive an email from the Grants Gateway system telling you that you've successfully submitted your application. Okay, so we've submitted our application. The last thing I want to look at is after about 5 or 10 minutes, the application PDF will appear. So that's the application version. That's the actual document that gets created from all the answers and attachments you've provided to the system. So that's found here back into the Forms menu, and you have to search for your application, since I've already gotten off of the application. So I can again search for SMART. I can see that it's now in the assignment of reviewers status, which means I can't make any changes, but I can go and look at it. I've clicked on it, and if I go to the Forms menu, in a matter of about 5 or 10 minutes, application versions will be clickable, and I can get in there and see a PDF of what I've submitted. Okay, so 5 or 10 minutes has elapsed, and if I go back to the Forms menu, I can see there's something here now in application versions. If I click on application versions, I can see a PDF is here. This file link will allow me to download it. This was the submission I created. Barbara Signatory did it at on 5/2 at 4:46 p.m. So if she clicks the link here, it'll allow you to open up or save a PDF. And this is all the information that we just provided in our application in one PDF. So there's a cover page that just shows who did it and when, how much we're asking for, $67,000. This is basically a copy of the submission page when she actually submitted it. Page 3 is the project site address, so remember the address we filled out. And then page 4 is where the answers to our questions start. Okay, so here's our answer to number 1. Here's our answer to number 2. And number 2 had an attachment. Now, we can't see that attachment right here. We can see that it exists, but after all the program-specific questions, we'll see all the attachments that we've provided for the program-specific questions. So we had an attachment here for number 3. We had an answer and an attachment here for number 4, and so on. So if I get through all the questions, I'll see all the attachments that I provided. So here we are on the last page of the questions, question number 23, and now the attachment starts. Now, of course, my attachments were just one document, one page that said sample attachment. Yours will be maps and forms and detailed information, of course. So here's one attachment, here's a second, third, fourth, and so on. So after your attachments is the next section of the Forms menu, which is the budget. Starts off with the expenditure summary. These are the totals for all the categories. That's how it adds up to $67,000. Shows our match information here as well. And then the categories. So this is the personal services salary. Information about that. So there's the justification that we entered, and then the narrative that we entered. Next is the contractual section and the justification and narrative. Next is other, and again justification and narrative. I didn't enter narratives in here, that's why we're not seeing it. Here's the match worksheet, because remember I did have a match of $1,000 on this particular one. And then we get to the work plan. So it looks the same as we saw in the system itself. Here's the overview. And then our work plan objectives. Objective 1, task 1.1, performance measures. Objective 1.2, task 1.2, performance measure 1.2.1. And then remember, I did not add a second objective, but if you had more, you'd see more here. Okay, and then the organizational capacity ends up at the end of the work plan section here. And finally is any other attachments that you've provided from the pre-submission uploads. So here's one attachment and another. Remember, we had 2 required attachments, and I also attached something in the grantee document folder, if you remember, and that's what the 3rd attachment here is. So that's what the application PDF looks like. That's what we submitted to DEC. They'll be using that to review your application along with the electronic version here in the Forms menu itself.